So I was a little annoyed about this miscommunication per se, because when I initially booked the room on the form that I had to fill out online, it specifically said if you want to order outside meals, if it's during meal hours, it would be a 100 NT charge for them literally just to bring it from the lobby to your room. And if it's outside of meal times, then it would be a 200 NT charge. And then you can't have any deliveries after like 10 or 12 or something until like 6 a.m. next morning, because that's when they disinfect the hallways with UV light, which I totally understand that part. Anyways, and I decided just to forego the delivery service because honestly, sometimes I would just like feel like ordering a cup of boba or something. But if a cup of boba is like 30 NT and I have to pay like 100 or 200 NT just for them to deliver it from the lobby to my room, at that point it's like not worth it. So I was like, okay, forget it. I'll just deal 14 days, and then after I get out, I can drink as much as I want. So that's why from the beginning I decided not to. But then get this, towards maybe like day 10, towards maybe day like 11 or 12, I started to notice that there was no like fruits in my bento boxes, and I know Taiwan is really famous for their fruit, obviously, and I was just like, okay, I'm eating a lot of meat and vegetables and rice and starch, and so I actually called and asked if it was possible to get just like a couple slices of fruit. I know it was only like my last couple of days, but I just needed something, I guess. For that situation specifically, they told me like, oh no, sorry, we can't do that, but if you do want to order off the room service menu, which is the one that I said earlier, which I guess is the reason why they still gave these to us, even though I already said that I wanted to do the bento box option before I even arrived. I guess is because if you want, you can still order from this, which is why they have the prices on the side. And the lady was like, oh, you can order fruit off of the room service menu and then you get like 20% off the listed price. And I was like, what? Anyways, it was fine. I didn't want to make their lives more complicated, so I just said forget it. And then the lady was like, or you can order, you know, either Uber Eats or Food Panda and get it delivered. And I was like, oh, but I thought there was an extra charge. And she was like, oh no, there's not. And I was like, what? And here I am on like day 12 and I'm like almost out of quarantine. And I'm like, are you serious? There's no extra charge. And I was like low-key upset because on the waiver that I signed when I booked the room, it specifically said what I mentioned earlier, the 100 during meal times and 200 outside of meal times. And I told that to the lady and she was like, oh, as long as it's during meal times, we don't have the extra charge. And if it's outside of meal times, then it's 100. And I was like, are you serious? Because that would have been so easy. I would have just ordered it during meal times, not a big deal. But because it had already been like 2 weeks since I signed that form, after I hung up with her, I went back to my email because I thought I misread it, and I reread it again and I was like, okay, I was correct. And I even sent it to my friend who was also considering booking the same hotel, and she said that hers said what the lady told me on the phone, which was 100 NT outside of meal times, but then it's fine if it's during meal times. And I was so pissed, and I sent her what I had on my form, and I was like, am I reading this wrong? And she was like, no, you're right, it is what it says. So I literally feel like I got like, I don't know, maybe they just like didn't update their form, but I read the form, I read every last word, and I thought I would get charged, so that's why I didn't order. Anyways, by then I was like, forget it, I only have 2 days left, and I can just go out and get boba and fruit when I get out. So I didn't. But if I had known from day one that I could order during meal times and there was no charge, I definitely would have ordered something. But it was too late. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that you can pick the different times of your meals. So this is like a piece of paper that's on the table once you check into your room, and it basically just says you can pick a drink. So you can either do coffee, hot or iced, juice, which is orange juice, or tea, and they have the option of black tea or green tea, and you can get that either hot or iced. And then here they have the different times. So for the 3 meals, so you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you can, for breakfast, you can either do 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, or 10. And then for lunch, you can either choose 12, 1, or 2. And then for dinner, you can either choose 6, 7, or 8. And so obviously you can fill this form out, but it was just easier when the lobby will call you after you check in to make sure that you're all settled and everything, and they'll just ask you and they'll write it down on their end. So I actually never ended up filling this out. And I know that some people changed like you know, what they'd want to drink for every different meal. So at first I just said, oh, I don't drink coffee and sometimes juice is too sweet for me, so let's just go with the tea. So they actually just gave me tea for every single meal, all 3 meals every day. And then after like day 5, I was like, okay, this is a lot of tea. And also I found some tea bags near the water kettle, near the water boiler that is provided for you. So I was like, oh, I could probably just make my own tea. And I was like, oh, but if I want milk tea, maybe I could ask them if they have milk. So I actually asked if they had milk, and I was like, oh, sometimes I like to drink milk for breakfast, and also if I want, I have some tea bags that I can mix in. And then the lady on the phone was like, oh, did you want to make milk tea? We can just make that for you. And I was like, what? Okay, that's so cool. And so what I ended up doing was I was like, okay, I'll get milk for breakfast and then milk with the tea for lunch and dinner. So they just made me milk tea. It was so nice and it was so cool. And I was so happy about that. So that was really cool that they were that accommodating. It does not say milk on this paper. I just asked, and they were able to do that for me. And I know somebody in the comments asked if they could do soy milk. So I didn't ask about soy milk, but of course Taiwan is known for their soy milk. So I don't know, you can ask them, but I feel like that's kind of like a different type of beverage. So I don't know if they would be willing to do that. They might do the whole, like, you can order it off the room service menu thing. But I don't know, you can definitely try it. And also they do provide you with a whole case of water, and so you have water to drink. For the water, I actually drank most of it by like day 10 or 11. And I didn't want them to give me a whole nother case because I didn't want them to have to like throw it out or whatever after I left. And obviously I couldn't finish it and I did not want to bring the leftover bottles with me. So I told them, I was like, I'm only here for like 3 more days. Can you just give me enough bottles to, you know, just a couple bottles. And they brought me like 8, I think. So that was perfect. I think I didn't finish like the last couple bottles, but it was better than having a full case. So they also provide you with water. Okay, enough about the food. I feel like this whole video is gonna be about the food service, but let's talk about the room specifically. So as I mentioned earlier, you can either have a king or 2 twin beds. But if you do have 2 people, you can get connecting rooms, and then it would be one side would be a king and then one side would be the twin bed, probably with just one twin bed, and then the other side would be open. And the reason for that is because even if you have 2 people, if you're like traveling as a couple, I think before they required you to book 2 rooms, even if it's connecting, so you could still like, you know, be together. But if someone were to develop symptoms, that way you could stay within your separate rooms and you would still be separated if someone were to get sick. But I feel like nowadays, I keep hearing on the news that there is not enough quarantine rooms available. And I have a friend who just came to Taiwan yesterday who's staying at the same hotel. And she said for 2 people, they were allowed to quarantine together. And so I guess either they're running out of rooms or they're just being a little bit more lenient these days. So I do know people who are now quarantining together. I don't know how that's going to work because even for one person, I felt like the room was like just barely like okay, like just barely like bearable. I don't know how 2 people are going to fit all their stuff and, you know, spend 14, 15 days in there. But other than that, everything should be okay. The one thing that I have an issue about the room is that the window doesn't open. And yes, it's a huge window and it brings in a ton of light and it's wonderful and it's great, but you can't open it and there's no balcony, so you don't have any fresh air. So that's probably the one biggest thing that I did not like about the room. And I know some people at other hotels don't even have a window, so I'm just glad to have a window that I can at least get natural lighting, but no fresh air. And it was to the point where like sometimes after I would take a shower and if it was like really stuffy in the room, I would like purposely like open the door to like put my garbage out at that time and then like leave the door open for a little bit longer so like, you know, the cool air from the hallway would come in. But I don't think you're supposed to do that. And also there are cameras right outside your room, so just be careful. But yes, there is no fresh air, and that was a little bit, that bothered me a little bit, but at the end of the day, as long as you have your AC and your fan blowing, it's fine. It is a Marriott, so it is a Western style chain. So it's pretty standard to like the type of hotel layout and style that you would see in the States. The bathroom, the shower, the toilet, the sink is probably what you're used to. If you do stay at a more traditional type Taiwanese hotel, sometimes like the bathrooms, the shower and the toilet area is like combined with the sink area, so you might not be used to it. For me, it's okay because I mean I've lived in those situations before, so it's fine. But if you're not used to that and you have to be quarantined there for like 2 weeks, you might be better off staying at a Western style hotel. And everything was really clean, and they do provide garbage bags for you so you can throw garbage out every day. There's like a set window. I believe it's, oh, it actually says on this paper right here. Okay, so I'll just go over the rest of the papers that are provided when you check in. Okay, so this is just like the general rules. It basically just says like, welcome to our hotel. You're gonna be here for 15 nights. These are the meal times. And then here it says that the charge for outside delivery service is 100 NT, and it doesn't say what time. So literally every time they mention this whole food delivery thing, it's totally different. So yeah, this one just says 100. So this probably means doesn't matter what time, it's always 100. Whereas in reality, it's free during meal times and 100 outside of meal times. But whatever, I'm just salty. And then, okay, yeah, so the garbage. So you take your garbage out from 3:30 to 4 every day, and then you just leave it outside of your door, and then they'll pick it up. If you do need more garbage bags, you can just ask them for more. There was like a stack when I got there, and then I noticed there were like different colors, but they didn't actually explain what like the different sizes or colors were. And so when I called the person about like changing my meals, I was like, hey, by the way, do the different colors mean anything? And they're like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. It was also during that call when I asked about like the bigger bags, and then the lady was like, oh, that's actually for like sheets or linens or towels. So if you wanted to get, you know, a fresh set of bed sheets or a fresh set of towels, you could just put the old ones in that bag, and then they can't take it out of your room, but you can just put it in the bag and leave it there. And so when you check out, they can easily like take it and make sure it's like washed properly, and then just let them know, and they'll deliver you a fresh set of either sheets or towels, whatever you need. So that was nice, but they didn't like mention that anywhere in any of these papers or whatever. So it was only because I asked. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I can look out of my peephole and I'll hear people like shuffling around and opening doors. And if I look outside, there are people literally leaving their room. They just like peace out.